River Nile is the longest river in Africa and is historically considered the longest river in the world. It flows from Lake Victoria in Uganda through southern Sudan, Egypt, and finally into the Mediterranean Sea. Communities living around the river depend on it for their livelihood. Its water is blue. Blue Nile Analytica, under the leadership of Pius Odhiambo, has been established to empower institutions in Africa meet the demand for data science professionals in the job market. This will make Africa remain competitive as it joins the rest of the world in data revolution era. Pius Odhiambo is a senior data science consultant based in Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce to you the team behind Blue Nile Analytica as they discuss how to map the future of Africa while educating Africans who will lead the way in data revolution era via Zoom. Blue Nile Analytica is offering classes in data science at a subsidized fee. Classes are conducted from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. East African local time every Saturdays for a period of 6 months. Registration is via Blue Nile Analytica's website www.bnanalytica.org. You can as well send an email via info@bnanalytica.org. Students from all countries in Africa are encouraged to apply.
So this is what on the screen, and you can see it. Let's go through it. And Mr. Levi, can you read for me what is on the screen? Read for us what is on the screen.
Okay, let me read. Yeah, Blue Nile Analytica Welfare Policy Statement. It says, Blue Nile Analytica is a startup organization comprising of a volunteer professional with the sole objective of rolling out data science classes targeting trainees from African countries. As presently constituted, all courses are being offered free of charge to qualified candidate until August 31st, 2023. In view of this, Blue Nile Analytica is coming up with a welfare policy that intends to cushion her volunteers when faced with uncertainties such as death of a spouse or close family members. A volunteer is defined as any member of a staff at BNA that does not receive any monetary compensation for services rendered. In order to qualify, a member must meet the following criteria. 1, must be an active volunteer with BNA, must be an alumni of BNA with at least one certification. The following family members are covered. 1, spouse of a member, biological children of a member, biological parents of a member, biological brothers and sisters of a member.
Can you please stop there? Can you please stop there? Now, Mr. Chemte, you have raised who to be covered. Now, the policy we want to adopt covers this one. Do you have any question on this?
No problem, because it's organizational, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is well, beneficiaries are well defined, right?
Okay. Yeah,
we have defined who a member is, right?
Yes.
And in the second part, we have defined who is a beneficiary. And we said a member, first we defined what a volunteer is. A volunteer is defined as any member of staff at BNA that does not receive any monetary compensation for services rendered. Why I wrote this, if we were to be paid for the services we are giving, we'll be earning a lot of money. And therefore, the issue of catering for our needs will not arise. But because we are not being paid, can our customers, all the people we are serving, show some love for us? Where I work and live, we give tips. You offer free services, but at the end of the training, if they like our service, they give tips. They give tips, any amount, because people are gifted differently. But that's a culture that will be very difficult to enforce, especially we coming from Kenya. So we are coming with a different version of that. So that is who a volunteer is. Now, if you cease to offer free services to us, then you cease to become a volunteer. But if you are a director or a member of the board, even if you give him some money, that money cannot pay the services you are giving us. Like now, it is at night, people are supposed to sleep. They are still here held up in a meeting. So directors of this meeting, of this organization, will automatically qualify to be a volunteer. We have now sacrificed our time for close to 1 year. We are even using our resources to set up this thing. So whether we start receiving some compensation or not, we still remain to be a volunteer because we have volunteered for a very long time for us to start seeing some food. So I think that is very clear. All directors of this, or the board of this organization remains volunteer, whether they will be compensated in the future or not, because we anticipate to contribute a lot to the establishment of this particular organization. Now, number 2, in order to qualify, a member must meet the following: must be an active volunteer with BNA, must be an alumni of BNA with at least 1 certification. So an active volunteer of BNA now, directors are always active volunteers. But now when somebody comes on attachment, internship, the internship has ended, and says, no, I want to continue volunteering, or during the internship, the person qualifies to be an active volunteer. Or somebody, a student comes in, and after taking the course, I say, I want to volunteer, and they already have 1 certification and is willing. So that qualifies. Now, the following family members are covered: spouse of a member, biological children of a member, biological parents of a member, biological brother and sister of a member. These are very close. These are very close family members because they are related to the members by blood, except the spouse, who is related by law. Now, you are related to your spouse by law, and because of the spouse, you have children which are related to you by blood. Do you think it would be fair to cover the children who are related to you by blood and leave out the spouse? Mr. Chemte, can you respond to that, please?
Of course, no.
Okay. So we'll strictly follow this. And now, when a beneficiary dies, we need proof of blood relationship. And in the proof, there are and proof of death, and the proof, there are the following documents. If I want to prove that somebody who has died is my mother or my father, I just get the ID of the person who has died, I get my birth certificate, and I get the letter from the mortuary to confirm death, or from the assistant chief, or the letter from the mortuary, the letter that the body is lying in a mortuary, or death certificate, or burial permit, stuff like that. Those are proof of death. So my birth certificate indicates the name of my father, and the ID of my father, and the document from the chief or whatever it is indicating proof of death has got the name of my father. So if those 2 names on the ID, the name on the ID and the name on the burial permit or letter from chief or the letter from the mortuary is the same name that appears on my birth certificate, then we have approved the relationship between myself, the beneficiary, and the person who has died. So we'll be looking for national ID, or letter from the mortuary, the chief, or even the letter from the assistant chief, or a burial permit. There's something happening on my screen, so I'm trying to remove it. Yeah, and that is applicable across the board. For a spouse, we will need the marriage certificate. If you are married locally, if you are not married officially, we will see a letter from the chief or assistant chief confirming that is indeed the person who has died is your wife. If we don't know your wife, if there's anybody who doesn't know your wife and or your husband, and then but for brothers and sisters, it's just birth certificate. My birth certificate has got the name of my parents. My brother's certificates has got the name of my parents. And for us to be blood brothers, the name of my mother and the name of my father are the same as the name of my father, my brother's father, and the name of my brother's mother on the birth certificate. This policy does not recognize half brothers and does not recognize half sisters. This policy does not recognize stepfathers, stepbrothers, and does not also recognize step parents. And I think that is very clear and is well explained. So again, we continue. Subscription to BNA welfare is voluntary. We are not going to force anybody. We are not going to force anybody. A member of the team, like a director, can say, no, I want to be, or I don't want to be a member of the welfare. The reason could be religious, the reason could be personal, we respect that. Then a student also can say, okay, although I've got a certification, I don't want to be a member of the welfare. That will be fine. But so long as he's getting our services, when he's coming in for the first time, he has to pay 2,000, which will cushion our members to the welfare. It's called registration fee, because even the Zoom we are using, we are paying it. The computers we are using, we are paying. The electricity, each one of us is paying power, we are paying for it. So these are some of the things why the organization charge some money like registration fee for registration purposes. But for BNA, I've decided to give it to the welfare so that it cushion our members against uncertainties. Now, any new trainee is required to pay non-refundable one-time fee of 2,000 per trainee toward the welfare kitty before they are admitted to BNA. This is just a one-time payment. It's just a one-time payment. It's not going to be every time. This policy will come into operation with effect from April 15, 2023. When a qualified beneficiary dies, a member will be required to provide proof of blood relationship with the BNA member and proof of death before the welfare can release at least 20,000 to the bereaved member, subject to the availability of funds. The Director, Human Resources Management, will enforce this welfare policy. He or she will manage the welfare kitty. Now, before we open the bank account, the M-Pesa account for the HR, Director HR is the one who's going to receive this money. And the Director HR will not wait for me to give an order so that the welfare a bereaved member can benefit and whatever. Me, I just need to be informed. Action need to move. And I want you to add there that this policy must be enforced within 3 days after the office has received all the documents for confirmation of death and proof of blood relationship.